Namaste. Good evening.
Good evening,
Welcome
Sandhya.
to TuriyaTalks once again. Christmas is around the corner. Christmas is most of all the birthday of Christ. Christ in the Bible represents the one who came to the earth and died on the tree crucified in order to carry the payment for our sins, as otherwise only someone perfect would be allowed in heaven. Christmas is celebrated differently in different countries. We have gifts to each other during Christmas as a symbol of love and kindness. Different people feel that at least at Christmas they should be more forgiving, giving to those in need as a representation of God's love for us in giving His only Son for our sin. We are very happy to introduce our guest, Miss Lily Pitchler. She is a Romanian thinker. She'll talk about how Christmas is celebrated in other countries and the way forward. Welcome to Turiya Talks, ma'am.
Thank you for having me, Sandhya. I'm happy
Yeah,
to be here.
I think you can be a little louder.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Right. So, first of all, Merry Christmas in advance.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Right. So, I think you will lead the show, and all our audience will be very, very happy to get your different perspectives. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Christmas is celebrated kind of the same all over the world these days because we have media, we have internet, we have movies, so everybody borrows from each other. But I think one of my favorites in Christmas is just sitting quietly under the Christmas lights and enjoying the tree with nothing else, feeling like festive and full of joy and hope. You know, like it's a special time for everybody to celebrate. It's a time when we supposed to be a time to look in the mirror of our soul and see who we are, to try to become better human beings. I think that's mainly what's happening in Christmas, for me at least. Thinking more about family, thinking about friends, thinking about loved ones, and hoping for the best.
Absolutely right. So, how do you celebrate Christmas? So, I think we would be very happy to know what is your celebration and how you're going to celebrate this year.
My celebrations are very simple. We just think of somebody who needs us and try to make it a better Christmas for them, to bring a little bit of joy and laughter. Usually, it's I think for the past 10 years, I haven't celebrated Christmas at home on the 24th of December as a day because of work reason, because of time. But although the date is important, it's more important that we remember what Christmas is all about. It's more like a season than a day per se. And for commercial reason, Christmas in many countries starts right after the 26th of November. People joke, Thanksgiving is over, let's put the Christmas tree on. Let's go Christmas shopping and so on. You are bombarded with all kind of advertisement for Christmas. If don't buy the latest necklace, or you don't buy the latest gold, or you don't buy the latest car. What kind of gift you bring to each other for Christmas? But Christmas is not about those kind of gifts.
Right.
While
So,
yeah,
yes,
while God
right.
will be happy if somebody drops you something like that, they are so temporary and so insignificant comparison to what Christmas is all about.
Right. Right. I wanted to ask you, have we lost the true meaning of Christmas?
I think so. I think, in spite of what we call human evolution, we have evolved into a commercialized human where everything can be bought or sold or gain an income from it or gain some power or some label of superiority. And in that process, we lost the true meaning of Christmas, which is servitude in some way. It's sometimes it's not something that you can show because it loses the meaning of giving.
I think you can speak a little louder. I think, yeah, audience will be able to hear.
Yes, I think we lost that meaning of giving, which is supposed to be in some way not for our own sake, as more as for the receiver's sake. If we make
Right.
it for our own sake, we'll put advertisements, we'll put it in the newspaper, we'll go and boast to the neighbors what we did. But if it's about the receiver, we have to keep it a little bit secret. So we say what's the most important thing, the dignity of a human life. Nobody wants to be at the receiving end, right? It's much more easier to be the giver in some ways. But when you give in such a way that you think that you are the receiver at the same time, somehow you keep it a little bit more secret for the happiness of somebody else. And like I said, evolution, it was supposed to be people becoming kinder, more thinking about others, being inclusive, being tolerant. But these days, even tolerance, it's intolerant, right?
Right. Right. So we are discussing how Christmas is celebrated in other countries and the way forward. And we are discussing with Miss Lily Pitchler. I'm so sorry for not being able to pronounce her surname properly because I think it has to be done with that accent. So, ma'am, my next question is, which country attracted you the most from your childhood when you saw the Christmas celebration?
I don't know if as a child I thought about countries as I thought about Christmas. um, Being born from parents of different nationalities, German and Ukrainian, being raised in a communist Romania, Christmas had a total different meaning than what country celebrated, more like it's the birth of Jesus Christ. On top of it, at the time when I was a child, we had to do it somewhat secretly because we were under the dictatorship of communists, so we are not really allowed to be free about these things. Although the Constitution said you are allowed, in reality it was different.
Right, right,
And it was that joy of, see, actually one of the best memory from childhood was when I was maybe 5, 6 year old, and my brother and my mother will cover all the doors and the windows so I cannot see what's happening inside. And now I'm in the other room screaming, let me in, let me see the Christmas tree. And my mom and brother so beautiful. Santa brought you such a beautiful tree, and it's so beautiful, and it's so many colors, so many lights, and now you'll be behind the door screaming, let me in, I want to see. Don't keep me out for so long. I want to meet Santa. And then they will open the door, and that magic, the lights sparkling, and it was, you cannot explain the feeling of happiness. It came
Right.
immediately.
Right.
And we
So,
visited
talking
them.
about your celebration back at home at Romania,
Yes,
will you speak about certain things, some interesting points which people of India can learn? Though, of course, you said in the beginning of the show that Instagram and so many social sites do update people what's happening around the world.
yes. Well, I think the main thing was togetherness that it brought. People forgetting all their grievances, all the things that somebody did against them, all the mistakes, and just being together and celebrating. The children will go from house to house and carol, and everybody will give you some cookies or some chocolates, everybody what they had, and then you'll come home with red cheeks and frozen toes, and being happy that you went to so many people and seen their Christmas tree and shared together. It was beautiful. I think that was the most beautiful thing that happened. And
Right.
it was,
Right. What is the significance of Christmas decorations to you?
to me personally or in general, what it means.
I think we will be very happy to get both the takes.
Well, the lights symbolize us in some way. You have the Christmas star on top of the tree, which symbolizes Jesus, right? Which is the star of Christmas. And all the other lights, it's us, uh, people who are made in the image of God. So we shine in our own way a tiny bit of light of God. In our own fashion, we shine the light of God. Then the candy cane. It's a silly cane which was made by a German candy maker. So it keeps the children in the church while attending at Christmas choir. Children cannot sit quiet for many hours and think this is religious. We have to. Children are children. So this candy maker was asked to make a candy for children to chew during the service, but to make it meaningful. So that's how the candy cane appeared in the shape of
Right.
red and white, and in the shape of a shepherd staff, which is symbolizing Jesus. Then if you turn it upside down, it's a J from Jesus. So I think that is a beautiful.
Right. Do you have any Christmas story to share with our audience?
Yes, I just recently read a story.
If you speak a
It
little louder. Yeah, yeah.
Recently, I read a story. Of course, it happened many years ago, but considering the times we live in, I think it's a beautiful story. It's called the Red Truck. Can I read it?
Yes, please, of course.
It's much better than if I. So it's written by Anne O'Neill, and she's sharing her memories. She says, five brothers, one truck, and me. It was quite a dilemma in my young mind. I was the eldest child in a family of six children, with five naughty brothers after me. My parents, now deceased and gone to their heavenly reward, bless their souls, were godly and raised us in a home filled with laughter, love, and prayer. Money, however, was often short. Ever since I can remember, principles like sharing, faith, and giving were often practiced virtues. As if having a large family, a low income weren't enough, my parents made a habit of helping others, less fortunate families. Back to my dilemma. Times were difficult and dad and mom hadn't been able to set aside much money towards their yearly treat of colors and lights and special desire to feel. We had a nice pine tree, which dad and the boys had chopped down and brought home. We had food, our home was warm, and we had help, but there was no money for this, or at least not enough for all of us 6 children. One day, Dad bought a beautiful shiny red wooden truck himself. It was just right for the boys, a gift they could enjoy together. So I was asked to give it to my brothers. The parents left the choice up to the girl if he could buy the truck or buy her a doll. But she chose that the parents would buy the truck, so the boys would be happy. And she said she had the best memories at the time. As she grew older and she had kids of her own, she made the goal that she will have a richer house with enough for her children, with plenty of gifts. As the days of summer faded, so did my plans for prosperity and financial security. My husband was let go from the job where he'd worked for 9 years. His company was downsizing, and in one short day our life began to swell out of control. Our savings would tide us over for 2 to 3 months. But if we could find a good job by then, we would be in a tough spot. Whenever I was met by a need or request from others, I would shake my head sadly, telling myself that if we were better off, I'd gladly help. The once familiar concept from my youth that he can never outgive God was long forgotten.
Ma'am,
Christmas,
can you speak a little louder? Your voice is not very clear. You have to speak a little louder.
sure. Christmas was just around the corner when a knock on the door brought back those long forgotten memories. My younger brother had come to visit and brought my boys a gift he had dug out of the attic of our parents' home where he still lived, the once shiny red truck. My mind was flooded with memories of that Christmas, the tears, the long and the shiny smiles, and the warm feeling of deep contentment that I now realize I hadn't felt in a long time. My brother sported toothly grin as he handed the well-worn truck to my eldest. Robbie, this truck brought your 5 uncles so much happiness that I thought you might enjoy it too. Then he hugged me and rushed out late to work. My thoughts were still being pulled back to those memories of that Christmas long ago as I drove to the local grocery store later that afternoon to buy what things we need for our Christmas dinner. On the day I passed the home of the Thomas family, Dave Thomas had worked with my husband, and I had met his wife a few times at the local park. Dave had been let go a month earlier than my husband, and they had 4 small children. He too was looking for work, but his wife was barely holding up. Things had been tough for them, and with 4 kids, they hadn't been able to save much, even when he was working. I felt bad for them. I really did. But how could I take away from what would be the food for my two sons in order to help them? How could I give them what we needed? It had been 3 months now since my husband had lost his job, and our savings were nearly gone. Yet, without a doubt, the Thomas family was worse off than we were. We could somehow manage to scheme for a few days and help them out. I weighed both sides with my mind, moving swiftly back and forth, trying to decide between my heart and my head. I was in turmoil as I entered the store and distracted, trying to decide what to do. My eyes landed on the toy shelf. I spotted a bright red truck. Slowly it began to dawn on me that the spirit of giving of that Christmas many years ago had survived the test of time. It was still in my heart. I had a chance to find that contentment once again. I couldn't shake the memories of that red truck going back and forth and how it had made everything else feel right inside. I thought of how happy Robbie had been to receive the truck that morning, and here I was, presented once again with the chance to give a little more than I thought was comfortable, to give even though it hurt me personally, and to dip into what I thought I needed. Somehow I found the strength to make the right decision. And as I stopped that day, I carefully picked out twice as much as I would have bought for our family. As I arrived at the checkout, it dawned on me that it had only 4 mouths to feed, but the Thomas family had six. So I slowly moved over some of what I had intended to buy for my own family into the second pile. I paid quickly, not wanting to change my mind. On the way home, I stopped just around the corner from the Thomas's house. I could see Mr. Thomas in the backyard watching the children play, and I could hear his wife quietly carry the box, humming a hymn in the kitchen as she fixed their supper. Being careful to not be seen, I quietly carried the boxes of food one at a time to the porch, setting them down quietly beside the front door. Then, after giving a sharp knock, I dashed behind some nearby large bushes where I could peek out not to be seen. I heard Mrs. Thomas call her husband to please answer the door as she was busy. It took a minute, but soon the door opened. There stood the figure of a man. He walked with a slouch, and the lines of despair were visible on his face in that afternoon light. The look turned to shock, then disbelief, and then a smile crept across his face. He bent down, shaking his head slowly as he gathered up the two boxes of food. Then he began looking around to find who had put them there. Finally, he turned and hurried back into the house, and I heard a resounding, "Oh my Lord!" echoing from Mrs. Thomas. The contentment had returned. It was more worth the sacrifice. I slipped back to my car and headed home. That night when I prayed, I felt like my prayers were being heard. I felt the contentment in my heart. I felt peace of mind, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that we would be okay. 1 week later, my husband came home with the happy announcement that he had found a job. He was overjoyed as he hugged the boys and then hugged me with tears streaming down his face. I had finished preparing dinner, and as we sat down to eat with the initial excitement now settling, I asked him where he was working and how he had found the job. He grinned happily to tell me the story. "Remember Dave Thomas, who used to work with me? He's married and has 4 kids. Surely you remember them, huh?" He paused as he took another bite and waited for me to respond. I nodded, unable to say anything as my heart began to beat harder. "Well, he got hired a few days back. They had a rough go, much tougher than us. He told me that last week he'd reached the point where he couldn't go on. He started looking for work a whole month before I did. He'd paid his bills and bought the last box of milk. he could afford that money. Then God just dropped them a couple of boxes of groceries right out of the sky. He said, imagine that, hon. I could feel tears welling up. I nodded with a feeble smile, and my husband continued, well, those groceries gave him a surge of faith and strength. He said he stood there thinking that if God cared enough to do something like that, then he must care enough to give him a job. He recalled a sign he had seen the day before for a new food distributor. He went right out and applied for a job there and was accepted. As his new job, a few days later, his boss told him they were still hiring, and he remembered me. He was parked outside our house, waiting for me to come out this morning. He looked at me he took me with him to meet his boss. You know what I kept thinking of as I came home today, hon? God bless the person who gave them those groceries. Unbeknownst to them, they drove blessing right out of the sky into our lives as well. Tears were now streaming down my face. My husband stared at me in bewilderment, not understanding where the tears were coming from. Then he reached out to hold me. I thought he'd like the story. He said, his voice trailing off quizzically. My tears were ones of joy as I realized that you really can never outgive God. When you give even when it hurts, then God has a new opportunity to give you a blessing. It took me a minute before I could bring myself to reply to my husband. I do love the story. The thing is, honey, I brought those groceries.
Very nice.
So I thought
Along
that
with this,
this
along
story
with
was,
this, do you have any carol also to play or to sing?
I don't think I am a good singer. I
Right.
thought I read this story more because of the times we're living in, where people have remained with no jobs, with no payment, and companies have downsized and they don't have even a salary. And everybody can look so much inwardly. You know, what do I have? I have to survive. But humans are much more than this survival thing. And just sometimes it doesn't have to be much. People thinking that when it's about giving, it has to be lax.
Right.
It
I
has
think we can only be hopeful. I think as you began the session and you said that hope, that
yes,
four-letter word, I think this is a very strong word.
yes, to give them strength to fight one more day.
Absolutely right. Even I believe in this word called hope. And I think I know you for more than a decade from my
Yes,
childhood. So you have really inspired me. Yeah? You have always said that have hope, have hope. So even whenever I'm in trouble, I always think, yes, hope. We have to give and we have to forgive. Yes,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Apart from this, do you have anything else to share with our audience?
Yeah, I was thinking about my favorite Christmas. And I don't think it's a Christmas that I celebrated because, in many ways, Christmas every year is different. There are different circumstances, different people around us, uh, and everything. But it's more a story that I heard. And it's not a story, it's an event from history. It's a Christmas truce, and it happened in 1914 in the World War One, where Germans and French and English were in the middle of battles. And although they have hoped the war will finish before Christmas, yet all the three armies were still at war just in the Christmas Eve. And on the Christmas of December 24, 1914, suddenly everybody, although they had to watch the enemy and everything, they suddenly saw one German getting up, nobody shot. And one Englishman got up, nobody shot. And one Frenchman
Right.
got up, nobody
Right.
shot. And suddenly one German started singing the well-known song Silent Night in German, of course, but everybody knew the song and everybody joined in, and it became like a Christmas truce. For me, that Christmas is one of the most powerful because we get dragged in all these wars and nationalistic view and prejudices and everything. Yet that hope of love, that
Right.
forgiveness that God gave us brought these three enemies together. And the general feared that these people will not be able to fight anymore.
Right. Thank
So
you.
England had to
Yes.
bombard them.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. So I think I wanted to ask you one final question. Any final message for Turiya Talks?
for TuriyaTalks, yes, keep on going
Yes.
yourself.
Right. We will. We will. I
Don't
think
judge.
next year also when we conduct the show, we'll try to have you as a guest. Right. So today we had a wonderful session with Miss Lily ma'am, who shared with us her varied experiences about the different traditions in Romania and the Christmas stories. I'm pretty sure our audience loved to hear from you, Lily, and enjoyed today's discussion thoroughly. Thank you for taking out time and coming to our show. We would not like to end the discussion here with your permission, ma'am. So I thought we'll just wrap it up. And I wanted to tell my audience that please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Turiya Talks YouTube channel. And thank you. Happy weekend ahead. Happy weekend ahead. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Happy
Yeah.
Sunday.
Thank you. Yeah.